Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be attempting to platinum The Last of Us Part 2 on Grounded and Permadeath. I'm just going to say it now, this was not an easy task. I actually tried my luck at this platinum trophy a little while ago, but of course I gave up. This meant that I had already grabbed all the collectibles in the first 1.5 chapters, and due to this, I thought I would make the challenge a little bit harder by 100% in the game. Jumping right into the trophies, I had earned 16 out of the 26 in my previous playthroughs, and this meant I only had to earn 10 trophies for the platinum. I had to learn all player upgrades, fully upgrade all weapons, find all artifacts and journal entries, find all trading cards, find all coins, find all workbenches, unlock every safe, win the marksmanship competition, and finally, find the strange artifact. Not to mention, I also had to finish the game on Grounded and with Permadeath activated. But if I could do all of that, then after 2 years, the platinum trophy would finally be mine. So I loaded up a fresh New Game Plus, selected Grounded mode, and activated the per chapter Permadeath. I also activated the option to receive a little bit of aim assist, as I felt this challenge would otherwise be literally impossible due to my complete lack of skill in this type of difficulty. If you've not played this game before, then of course, major spoilers ahead, but I think it's finally about time we start earning this platinum.
And I believe, 'cause I can see our future days of you and me.
After this cutscene finishes, we skip 4 years ahead, and this is where the majority of part 2 takes place. After strolling with Jesse for a little bit, we can find the first collectible of the game. If you look closely, you can see I've already grabbed this collectible, and it will be the same for all the collectibles up until Satiire Day 2. Right after this collectible is a lovely little dog, and as I've said before, I will never miss an opportunity to stroke a dog in a game, and this is no exception. After absolutely destroying these kids at a snowball fight, we finally get introduced to the fan favourite character, Abby. It is here that we encounter the first fight interaction of the game, and because I forgot how to dodge, it ended like this. I had to replay 10 whole minutes of this chapter just to get to the same spot, but once I got there, this happened. This is when it started to sink in that maybe playing on Grounded and Permadeath at the same time was not the best idea. I tried again, this time deciding to just run straight past the infected, instead of choosing to fight them, which surprisingly worked. Running past the enemies like this will become a common theme throughout this playthrough, and it got me out of a lot of sticky situations. Eventually, I reached the first semi-difficult area of the game, where Ellie and Dina are clearing out the infected at the lookout locations. At this point, I was about 20 minutes into this chapter, and dying here would mean replaying the whole chapter again. So because of this, I took it pretty slow, but once we reached the spores, I knew my luck had finally ran out. There was many more deaths along the way, exactly like this one, and each death would reset me at least 20 minutes back. The main issue with Grounded, other than it being really hard, is that there's no HUD, and that means it's impossible to know when you're running low on health. Grounded also removes listening mode, which I ended up missing quite a lot throughout this playthrough. Even after the fact that Joel saves her life, Abby is still bloodthirsty for revenge, so she mentions about their hideout where Joel and Tommy are welcome to visit. This is the make or break for the game for a good amount of people. The all important event that decides whether you want to carry on with the story or head to your local game shop and sell the game, never to touch it again. Joel and Tommy eventually arrive at the hideout, clueless about the events that are about to take place.
You don't get to rush this.
A few moments later, Ellie arrives on the scene, but unfortunately, the damage has already been done.
Please don't shoot. Joel, please get up.
Ellie decides to ignore Tommy's wishes, instead choosing to hunt down Abby and her crew for smashing Joel's face in. Before that though, Ellie visits Joel's grave, pressing F to pay her respects. She also decides to loot Joel's house, taking his watch and gun before giving his coat a little sniff. Now we can finally start the first of 3 days hunting for Abby and her crew. Day 1 starts off with Ellie and Dina stumbling across a massive gate that needs to be opened. Once opening the gate, we can make our way to probably one of my favourite areas in the game. This whole area is free roam, and when I first played this game back on release day, I was pretty shocked to see this area in a Last of Us game. There wasn't much to do here, as I had already unlocked the trophy for exploring this area, but I still wanted to watch one of my favourite missable cutscenes in the game. I quickly came to realise that due to Grounded not having a lot of supplies, I would probably need to do a quick cleanup run in order to get all the weapon and player upgrades for the dedicated trophies. I pressed on, trying my luck at the courthouse in order to get some gas, which didn't really go too well. This kept happening over and over, and at this point, I had seriously lost all hope that I would be able to complete this game with both Grounded and Permadeath active. I eventually made it past this area, reaching the courthouse garage. This was pretty much just as hard as the first area, but somehow, by the skin of my teeth, I managed to barely make it out alive. As I was snooping around, I failed to notice this trap in between the cars, and if Dina didn't say anything, I genuinely would have lost 45 minutes of gameplay to a trap.
Stop. Tripwire. Oh, shit. Good catch.
Literally 5 minutes after Dina saved me, I ended up failing the run for myself anyways. I made it back to the same spot, this time making sure to keep my distance, before ending up at the radio tower to witness some pretty unfortunate scenes. It was just my luck that straight after the radio tower, there were 2 shamblers patiently waiting for my arrival. And of course, you can probably tell how this went. When I got back to the same spot, I tried running straight to the exit, which luckily triggered a cutscene, saving me from harm and letting me get through to the next area.
Ellie, your mask! Here, we can share mine.
No! Don't take it off!
Ellie, stop! Ellie, stop! What?
No!
Ellie, no!
Stop! I'm not infected. I'm immune. I'm not coughing, do you see?
I genuinely thought I was in the clear at this point, but I didn't realise you had to save Dina from being mauled alive, and that forced me to restart.
Go!
I tried again, reaching the same point to ultimately get caught by a clicker, as Dina literally moves at a snail's pace.
Ellie!
After a few more attempts, I finally got back to the same place. If I could get through this, I could finally pass the area I'd been stuck on for the past few hours. And luckily for me, we barely made it out alive. After playing some tunes on the guitar, we ended up finding Dina, who has been up all morning cracking the enemy's code language. Initially, Dina wants to come with us, but she decides to stay behind, giving Ellie a good luck charm and a little smooch before we head out to Hillcrest in search of Tommy. This area starts off pretty easy, searching for supplies in the abandoned shops. A little while after this, we can get into the first combat area, which I surprisingly managed to do pretty well in. Once defeating these guys, we can head through the red door, and yet again, we run into another shambler. I tried to do this bit stealthily, but I didn't realise there was a runner, and in the end I just had to wing it. After this, it's pretty much the hardest part in this chapter. There's constant enemies, and at this point I had no ammo at all. My only option to get past them was with stealth, and this meant crawling through all the grass I could find. This was going pretty well, until it wasn't. I had no choice but to leg it through this entire section, and somehow I managed to get through unharmed and meet up with Jesse. After silently taking out this woman, I witnessed Jesse shoot down the other guy, and realised I could probably use him to my advantage. I figured out that by triggering the enemies to shoot at me, Jesse would shoot back, and I managed to pass this section pretty easily. Once we get back to the theatre, Jesse and Dina start flirting in front of us, and Ellie decides to walk off and cry herself to sleep. A little while after this, we run into a bloater, and honestly, this fight had me on edge the entire time. There's no specific trigger to get past this area, only that you need to deal enough damage to the bloater before voluntarily letting him grab you. The game doesn't give you any real hint if you've done enough damage, so I was unsure how close I was to failing this part. But luckily, I somehow dealt enough damage, and Joel wasted no time unaliving the bloater. From this point on, I'd started collecting the collectibles I had missed on my first playthrough. This wasn't the best news though, as the majority of difficult areas leading up to this point have resulted in me running through them, instead of seeking out the collectibles. What I'm trying to say is the challenge just went from crazy hard to literally impossible. I grabbed the first trading card of the video in this rundown store pretty near to the start of the chapter. I then got absolutely ripped apart when going for another collectible. But when I restarted, I figured out that the collectibles do indeed save, even after the chapter reset, which was extremely helpful. I carried on, opening a safe before reaching the last journal entry of the chapter. To get this entry, we have to eliminate all the scars in the area. This surprisingly wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I grabbed the journal entry. A little while after this, we have to sneak into the hospital, and we end up seeing a cool throwback to the PS Vita. The whole point of coming to the hospital is to find a woman named Nora, and once we sneak through a few soldiers, we finally meet up with her. This starts a chase scene, and it was pretty impossible to catch up with her.
How many people are dead because of him?
Last chance.
I'm not giving up, my friend.
We end up watching another flashback, and this one really got me in the feels.
Making a vaccine. Would have killed you. So I stopped them.
Don't you fucking touch me! I'll go back. But we're done.
After grabbing the first trading card of day 3, I played some more tunes on the guitar before finding another workbench, which allowed me to upgrade my shotgun. A little while after this, we can make our way to the aquarium. Before that though, I had to make a pit stop to grab another artifact. This one was surrounded by infected, but I decided to eventually run through and grab it before barely making it out alive. This was basically how I got through a lot of these areas, running in, collecting what I needed, and then bailing to the next area. I eventually got to this mini boss fight with a bloater, and you can probably tell how this went. This happened again and again before deciding to go all out, crafting trip mines and 2 Molotovs instead of 1. After a few bullets to the face, the bloater finally got what it deserved. We can then grab another trading card before heading to the aquarium. Once at the aquarium, we run into Owen and Mal, and Ellie decides to interrogate them both for Abby's location. This quickly goes sour and she has no choice but to unalive them both before returning back to the theatre. Because of this, Abby seeks revenge by one-shotting Jesse and holding Tommy hostage. Before anything crazy happens, the game restarts, and now we have to experience the whole thing again from Abby's point of view. I completely understand the reasoning behind playing as both characters, but I will say it was kind of a weird decision to get to the climax of the game to make us play for another 10 hours, just to see how it all pans out. We start day 1 in the stadium, and this is where we can grab the first trophy of the video, Sharpshooter. Before that though, you know I had to give this dog a little stroke. To unlock this trophy, we have to beat Manny at a shooting competition. He will always get 83 points, so all I had to do was hit the target perfectly 9 times to get 90 points. Yeah, as you can see, I kind of need to work on my aim a little bit, but this was enough to get the trophy to pop. After this, there's another encounter with a bloater, but to be honest, this one was a lot easier than the arcade section, and I managed to get through it in one piece. As Abby and Mel are about to reach the train station, I accidentally jumped off the building and had no choice but to restart the chapter. As I was making my way through the chapter again, this happened. Eventually, we reached the trains, and I genuinely tried my best to sneak past the enemies. This didn't go too well, so I decided my only option was to run and gun, which surprisingly worked. I actually got pretty lucky on the next part as well. We get ambushed by a group of scars, and I had little to no ammo, which left me with no way out of the situation. What I didn't realise is that the game will automatically bring Abby's crew to save you after a certain amount of time, regardless of how many enemies you have dealt with. So I managed to get through this chapter surprisingly well. On the way to the aquarium, we can unlock this trophy for picking up a strange relic, which is actually a precursor orb from the Jak and Daxter series.
What is this?
There was a workbench here, and I decided to upgrade Abby's hunting rifle. With this upgrade, I only needed 240 parts to fully upgrade Abby's remaining weapons. On the other hand, we still needed 510 supplements in order to fully upgrade Abby's stats, which meant a second playthrough was looking more and more likely for Abby's half as well. We eventually get kidnapped by the Scars, and honestly, this was the hardest chapter in the game for me. Once Yara and Lev get us down from the rope, we have to fight a bunch of stalkers with only a hammer. This didn't go too well. But after making it through this encounter, Yara gets jumped, and yet again we have to defend ourselves from more stalkers, and I bet you can already see how this went. After eventually making it through the forest, Yara and Lev get jumped by one of the big Scar enemies, and I got absolutely shafted. This meant replaying the whole stalker area again, which didn't go too well at all. After dying multiple times over a few hours, I was pretty ready to give up, but then this happened. But of course, this chapter would not go down that easily. Instead of saving and letting us move on, the game chucks us in one final wave of infected, and I'm sure by now you can see how this goes. This was probably the hardest point in the game so far, because every single time I died here, I would have to restart all the way back at the stalker fights, and then I'd have to fight a big Scar woman, and then finally I would get another attempt at passing this area. I can't tell you how many times I failed here, and it got to the point where I just stopped recording my deaths to focus up on getting through this chapter. After hours and hours of trying to get past this last area of infected, this happened. Relieved that I had made it through, I pressed on, unaware of what lied ahead. This boat was full of infected, and it basically gave me no choice but to sneak through the entire thing. I made my way through, grabbing an artifact, and unlocking the last safe I needed for the trophy safecracker. I nearly failed this area because somehow this runner caught me and nearly gave away my position, but with him out of the way, I could sneak past the remaining infected and reach the door safely. Eventually, we make it to the aquarium and find Owen, only to wake up and feel the urge to save Lev and Yara from the Scars. We make it back to the trailer where we can see that Yara's arm has gotten pretty bad. To fix this, Abby and Lev decide to travel to the hospital in search of medication needed to remove Yara's arm. We can make our way to the crane right at the top of this building. Now, I'm not too sure whether you can fall off at this part, but I managed to make it all the way across before falling into another building, being saved by a pool of water.
Back up. All the way.
If you die, I'll be stuck here.
We better start praying I make it.
After finding a mask, a group of infected spawn in, but if you're quick enough, you can make it back unharmed and give Lev the mask. This whole hotel segment had me on edge the entire time. It was infected after infected, and I'm genuinely surprised I made it out in one piece.
You can take your mask off.
Eventually we make it to the hospital, and this is where we can grab the last coin of the chapter. This area was full of spores and dead infected. I found a workbench here and decided to use up my parts to upgrade Abby's weapons. This area seemed to be going pretty well until it wasn't. This is the Rat King, and it's probably the hardest boss in the game. This boss fight was a solid 15 minutes into the chapter, and I was a bit worried that this would hold me up for another few hours. But after my second attempt, I got extremely lucky and barely managed to defeat it with only my crossbow ammo remaining. This unfortunately wasn't the end though, because we still had to defeat the smaller enemy that fell off the Rat King mid-fight. So I grabbed as much ammo as I could find and healed up before attempting this fight, which surprisingly went really well. Day 3 starts off with Lev stealing a boat in order to save his mum from the Scar Island. Abby and Yara, of course, want to save him, so we make our way towards the docks before getting into the sniper section. I had a pretty easy time dodging the sniper in between cars before getting absolutely slaughtered while evading infected. I'm pretty sure this was just down to pure luck, as when I tried again, I used the same path and I managed to get through unharmed. After entering a chase scene with the sniper, Manny's life unfortunately gets ended, and it turns out that the sniper is actually Tommy, who gets stabbed by Yara, ending up in the water. We eventually make it to the island, sneaking through cornfields before reaching Lev and Yara's home. While escaping the island, we earn the trophy Numismatist for collecting all coins. And then we witness one of the sadder cutscenes in the game.
Got one! Abby?
Yara! Yara, get up! Yara, please! We need to move. Come on!
A little bit later, we steal a horse and make our way towards the docks, before jumping into a burning building and getting into a fight with another big Scar. This fight was pretty similar to the one in the forest, and after dealing enough damage, he was pretty much done for. All that was left to do was to grab the boat and finally escape the island. Once arriving back at the aquarium, Abby sees the damage that Ellie has done to Owen and Mel, and this is pretty much the reason why she decides to seek Ellie out, arriving at the theatre. Now we get to fight Ellie, and at this point, I genuinely felt sorry for Abby, and surprisingly, a bit of resentment towards Ellie, which is definitely not how I felt the first time I played this game. To win this fight, we have to hide from Ellie until the time is right for us to hit her from behind and do some damage. After doing this 3 times, Ellie gets absolutely smoked, and Dina nearly gets her life taken, before Abby has a change of heart and leaves them to suffer, instead of ending their lives.
Here. Alright, there you go. Oh, gentle, gentle, gentle. Just like that. There you go. Yeah.
There's not really much to do in this area. I personally think it was designed in a way to make the player believe this is the end of the game. And when I played this game on release, I genuinely thought that was the case. We eventually find out that Tommy is in fact alive, and only came over to tell Ellie he knows where Abby is. This sends Ellie in a spiral, eventually leaving Dina in search of Abby in Santa Barbara. Once we get here, we can grab an artifact before having to restart due to another bugged death. I tried again, grabbing another trading card before getting caught in a trap and being impaled by the tree branch. A little while after this, we can sneak past these enemies to get the last workbench for the trophy, prepared for the worst. And basically straight after the workbench, we can grab the last trading card for the trophy Master Set. This is probably the hardest part of the chapter, as there was just heaps and heaps of enemies. I tried running through originally, but this didn't work, so I tried to go stealthier the second time around. I decided to use the clickers as bait, but I eventually ended up alerting the enemies, giving me no choice but to sprint to the last artifact for the trophy. I then made it through a bunch of enemies before reaching the door at the end of the chapter.
Hey! Abby tried to escape. She's down in the pillars.
The pillars?
Head down to the beach. You won't miss it. She's probably already dead.
After cutting Abby down from the pillars, we have no choice but to fight Abby, even though at this point, I actually feel really sorry for her. When I played this game a few years back, I genuinely hated how Ellie let Abby go, but playing it now, I can see exactly what Naughty Dog were trying to do. I feel like Abby genuinely does not deserve this, but at the same time, I can completely understand why Ellie wants her dead. The game makes you sympathise for both characters, and that's something I completely missed before because I was so held up on Joel's death.
Go. Just take him.
Once we arrive back at the house, we can see that Dina is gone, and Ellie is all alone, showing that in her dire need for redemption, she not only lost Joel, but she also lost everyone else because she couldn't let it go. The game ends with Ellie leaving Joel's guitar behind, and I can only assume this is to show that she has moved on from Joel's death and has finally accepted what happened. This is when we unlock the trophies for completing the game on Grounded and for completing the game on Permadeath. These are also the stats for my Grounded Permadeath run, which resulted in me having over 100 deaths with 14 hours of lost time. I can't lie, the majority of these deaths were probably from the forest chapter, as that was hands down the hardest part of this game. After finishing the game, there were still 2 trophies remaining in order to unlock the platinum. These 2 trophies are Survival Expert and Arms Master. I had to load up another New Game Plus, play through the entire story as Ellie, upgrading her weapons and player stats to max, before reaching day 1 as Abby, where I could upgrade the last weapons needed for the trophy Arms Master. And finally, reaching day 2 to grab the last few supplements I needed for that lovely platinum trophy. I honestly really enjoyed this platinum a lot more than I originally thought I would. Even after the pain of the Grounded Permadeath run, I still have some sort of urge to start the game again, and I probably will do at some point. The story is definitely more clear to me now that I truly accepted Joel's death, and honestly, I think I can rank this as an all-time favourite of mine, placing it right next to the original game. If you played The Last of Us 2 way back on release day, and hated it like the rest of us, maybe it's time to pick it back up again and give it another go. Thank you all for watching, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!